Yeah.
Yeah, in that case, if you want to just come on over here. We're going to have a couple other soldiers join us in just
Can I record?
Yep. And then I'll just ask that you stay roughly in line with the tree. So if you imagine, as long as you're basically right here, you'll be good. We'll be firing out that way.
Yeah.
Alrighty, I'll just call you back over here.
All right.
You can come closer if you'd like.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, kind of about here is the best place to see. You'll have the best view.
Okay, thank you.
Alrighty. Just before we get these muskets fired off, I'm going to talk pretty quickly about what we're wearing, because it's a little bit odd. It's not exactly something you'd see every day. So we have many different soldiers represented here. Maybe the most obvious being these bright red jackets with myself and Dalton on the end there. We represent British infantry soldiers of the 1800s. So this bright red is shared amongst almost all of the British coats at this time. It denotes you as a British infantryman, though there are some other things about our coats that can vary depending on what regiment we're coming from. So these cuffs and collars can be different colors, with different shaped lacing, and even these buttons all have the number 89 on them, as we're part of that 89th Regiment of Foot. The British are incredibly wealthy during this time period, so they have enough money to make their soldiers look really nice, as opposed to their opposition, the Americans, who do not exactly have that same privilege. You'll see there an American blue coat on the end, though you might notice a distinct lack of any blue in that coat. And that's because by the end of the war, in 1814, what were originally very nice, pretty comparable outfits, you know, with the bright blue, red cuffs and collars, white lacing, all of that had to be stripped away for money, as they had declared war on their #1 trading partner and the world supplier of blue dye. And so all of a sudden, the bright blue jacket gets a little bit more gray, loses all of the nice ornamental buttons and other things like that, and eventually they send multiple regiments out here in just plain gray working jackets. These are the sorts of jackets you wear to dig out ditches and latrines, not what you would wear for dress, parade, or battle. But these guys, the gray coats, were actually better fit as soldiers than the earlier blue coats. They had gone through lots of different training regiments than the earlier war soldiers. They were better trained, and they could actually stand toe-to-toe with the much nicer dressed redcoats. And then finally, we have an example here of a militiaman. You might not be able to tell what side he's fighting for, and that is one of the #1 problems with the militia during this war. He is just wearing something out of his own closet. So a hat that he would pick up off his stand, a hunting jacket or something like that out of his closet, and that's what he's wearing out. He's being given the musket, but everything else is his own. And fashion here and across the river in the States is pretty similar. And so you're going to find that a lot of the soldiers that are militia coming out onto the battlefield look pretty identical, and it can be impossible to tell who's who. And so often they would tie different colored bands around their hats or around their arms to be able to show the difference between the guys on one side and the guys on the other. But none of this looks very well equipped for the battlefield. It's bright, it's ridiculous, we have bright white pants, tall goofy looking hats, and even very convenient shoot me here X's right in the center of our chest. You might think that this would be dangerous to wear out there, but this is in fact the best thing that you could be wearing, and it comes down to the weaponry as to why. So two of our soldiers are going to come up to you and show what they've got going on there. We've got Dalton here on the right with a British Brown Bess model musket, and Grayson on the left with a Springfield model musket, the corresponding ones for their armies of the time period. This is the most common weaponry you'd be seeing on the battlefield, and despite a few aesthetic differences, they load and fire the exact same. So what you're going to do to get this thing loaded up is take a little bit of powder, put it into the pan there on the side of the weapon, close that shut with the frizzen, and then cast the weapon about, putting the rest of the powder, paper, and a musket ball all down the front of the gun, using that ramrod there to smash it all the way down to the bottom. You'll then pull the weapon back up, pull back that hammer on the back of the lock there, and pull the trigger. And then hopefully, a couple things are going to happen for you. Hopefully, that flint there in the flint-lock musket is going to fly forward, hopefully striking the hardened steel frizzen hard enough to create some sparks. Hopefully those sparks ignite the priming charge on the side of the pan. Hopefully that travels through a hole in the side of the gun called the vent, hopefully igniting the powder down at the bottom of your barrel to hopefully send something out of the front of your gun towards the enemy. Hopefully. I do say hopefully quite a lot. These are the most widespread weapons, but that does not mean that they're especially that good, even for that time period, especially not today. There's a couple problems that comes with them. The first one being that they are flintlock, and that flintlock mechanism is on the outside of the weapon. So you are relying on the high-tech piece of weaponry that is rock hitting metal creates spark. That's caveman technology. It's not exactly the most advanced, and it's not going to work every time. Even in perfect conditions, we have pretty good ones today, despite a little bit of wind, you're still going to misfire 30% of the time. So 7 out of 10 will fire, and 3 out of 10 are just going to click, and you're going to have to get the gun working again. And then you have to compound all of the other problems with the gun, specifically any sort of wind, rain, snow, even humidity can all lower the chances of this gun firing. And so when you take that into account, those firing chances can get much, much lower. But let's say your gun does go off. What happens next is that you are firing a marble down a metal tube that is something that is smooth bore. Modern day rifles have something called rifling, which is a groove that is drilled down the barrel, catches the bullet or musket ball, whatever you're firing, and gives it a spin. And that spin helps it stay on its path as it flies through the air and resists different air currents and things like that. These, however, do not have it. It was pretty expensive, and these are widespread. They want to be giving these to everybody. So they leave it out. Instead, you've got a metal tube with a little marble firing down it, and it rattles, jingles, jangles, clings, clangs, and fire-offs in really whatever direction it so pleases. You have an accurate range of about 75 yards, which is roughly the distance from that wooden palisade behind you to this wooden palisade behind me. Not very far. Past that, you can miss your target by up to 9 feet in any direction. And past 200 yards, one British officer was caught on record saying you have a better chance of firing and trying to hit the moon than you do anything here on Earth. So if they don't fire every time you use them, and they don't even hit what you're aiming at when you do fire, why would you use them? That's a good question. And the real answer is that they're incredibly cheap, easy to learn, and easy to reload. And so you can combat those difficulties of the weapon by giving them to as many soldiers as you possibly can, getting them to line up shoulder to shoulder just like they're doing now, load and fire at the exact same time in something called linear tactics. So if you've got hopefully 1,000 guns on the field, even if you have a 70% fire rate, hopefully 700 guns are now firing. That creates a wall of lead flying downfield. Accuracy is not the name of the game. You're trying to just erase whatever's on the opposite side. And so hopefully somebody will hit something, and then you can start loading again. But that does lead to the third and final problem with these guns, and that is that they create an incredible amount of smoke. You're going to see 2 guns here firing about a tablespoon of black powder. You're going to see how much smoke that they create. If you can imagine it multiplied by, once again, 1,000 or more soldiers firing over and over and over during a battle, it creates a lot of smoke. And that tends to gather into a large cloud on the battlefield, something called the fog of war, if you've ever heard that before. So even the distance that you folks are right now, to our soldiers just ahead of you, you might not be able to see who they are, who they're fighting for, and whether or not they're going to shoot you, which is pretty important to know. Which comes back to why we wear these ridiculous outfits. It's much easier to play red team versus the hopeful blue team, though that's a little bit more gray, than green and camouflage blobs versus green and camouflage blobs. If you can tell who you are and who you're shooting at, cuts down on friendly fire, and hopefully only 50% of the battlefield will fire at you. But with that, they're out at a safe distance, and so we're going to get them loaded up and firing now. Keep in mind they'll be firing real black powder, so it's going to make a pretty loud bang. If you want to plug your ears, we will not be offended. Hopefully the muskets won't be either. They'll get off firing for you really nicely, and we'll get going now. Squad will perform the platoon loading exercise with blank cartridge load. So that is the ceremonial process. So we're going to go step by step. Handle, cartridge. Grabbing that cartridge out of their bag, bring it up to their mouth, and ripping it off with their teeth. you actually had to have 2 teeth to be able to join the Army. They would check at conscription, make sure that they touched. Prime. They're going to put a little bit of powder into the side of the gun as their priming charge, lock it up, grab the back of the gun, and then they're going to cast about.
1, 2, 3, 4.
And put the rest of it down the barrel. And then they're going to withdraw rammers.
1, 2, 3.
And pull that out. They're going to use that to seat that all the way down at the bottom. Ram down, cartridge.
2, 3, 4.
So you'll see that's what they're doing there. This is the slower version of the load. Obviously on a battlefield, you would probably only use this for the first 1 or 2. Withdraw, return, rammers.
2, 3.
As the battle continues on, you're going to be trying to fire as quickly as possible, usually every 15 seconds or so, until they'll abandon this after a little bit. Then they will shoulder, arms.
1, 2, 3, 4.
It is imperative that they return that rammer there to the side of the gun, don't get me wrong. If you fired it off, it'd make a wonderful projectile. I'm sure you could skewer some poor guy on the opposite end of the field, but it is required to reload, so it becomes a little bit awkward if you have to walk across and ask for it back after every single shot. But they are ready to go, so this is your final warning. If you want to plug your ears, do so now.
Plug your ears.
Make ready!
2, 3, 4.
Present! Fire! Prime and move! So now I've set them onto autopilot, adding in that little prime and load. So they're going to get this load up as fast as they can. On average, it'd be about every 15 seconds, though of course, if you could do it faster, that is more than better. There are certain historical reports of soldiers getting it loaded as fast as 10 seconds, and the best armies are the ones that can make it in that range, which is something that the British were particularly good at, and it led to a lot of their dominance on the battlefield. But they're ready for their second shot now. Make ready!
2, 3, 4.
Present! Fire! Don't get work here, Grayson. Rammer.
Cool. I just love it.
Please fire again. Please fire again. Please fire again. Please fire again. Please fire again.
So his gun did misfire there. He had a click, but no bang. And there's many different problems that can occur. Hopefully I won't have to go into each and every one, but really any sort of moisture on this mechanism will cause your powder to become inert and it will just not fire. The gun's been having a little bit of problems today, so hopefully we're gonna get it on this second shot here and we won't have to keep you here all day. Make ready! Present! Fire! Spring rammers! Round of applause for our shooter here. So he puts that down the barrel there. And with that little clang, we know that there's nothing left down the barrel and that that gun is entirely clear, safe to carry around again, and that we are finished with our firing. So with that, I will release you back to whatever you're doing today. If you have any questions, we'll be around and happy to answer them for you.
Thanks, guys. Thank you.
Okay, just to say, I love that stuff.
Thank you.
Station.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, it was just like so cool seeing they shoot stuff guns. It's just so cool.
I'm glad you enjoyed it.
Thank you.
I enjoyed it very much.
Perfect,
Thank
buddy.
you.
We were doing it for you.
This is awesome. And the sanitizer.
Put your little bayonet through there, eh?